Hello, viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews. The Oscar nominations, by the time of this recording, will be announced on Tuesday. And in light of that, I decided to review some movies I saw in December and January that will be contending for nominations, if not wins. Bear with me here, I'm finishing my tea. So let's start off with the best animated feature frontrunner, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. First of all, the stop motion animation and production design are spectacular. It's so tactile and fantastical. You could tell that Guillermo del Toro and the animation team really took their time with this. I forget the name of his co-director, but I want to give him a shout out because um he uh he's he deserves as much credit. Mark Gustafson or Gustafson. Anyway, so uh this iteration of Pinocchio is a very unique approach in that Del Toro does not resort to making it a morality tale of not telling lies. The narrative is much more spiritual than it is moralistic. There's no temptatious pleasure island. His nose does grow, but the nose is not necessarily a ticking clock of the story. It does grow in the film, but surprisingly, it's treated more like an afterthought. It's more uh, concerned with other things, and if you see the film, you'll know what I mean, but I don't want to spoil too much, but the narrative takes place during 1930s fascist Italy. Geppetto, voiced by David Bradley, who you may know from the Harry Potter movies as Mr. Filch, and he was also in Game of Thrones. He played Walder Frey. Uh, so Geppetto lost his son Carlo in a bombing incident, and then in a drunken rage, he designs Pinocchio. And then Pinocchio is then given life by Wood Sprite, voiced wonderfully by Tilda Swinton. The Cricket, voiced by Ewan McGregor here, is an aspiring writer attending to write his memoirs. And Wood Sprite actually tells the Cricket that if he looks after Pinocchio with care, that she will grant him whatever wish he asks. The funny thing is that the Cricket's name isn't Jiminy Cricket. His name is Sebastian J. Cricket. And then Pinocchio goes on an existential personal discovery journey, learning about his own self-worth and value. He's recruited into a circus where he meets the film's main villain, Count Volp, I think that's his name, voiced by Christoph Waltz, always amazing, and a monkey named Spazzatura, voiced by Cate Blanchett. Yes, Cate Blanchett voices a monkey. The monkey, however, does not necessarily like Count Volp. She, in fact, feels exploited. So Pinocchio joins a Hitler Youth camp alongside his friend Candlewick, voiced by Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. And Candlewick's dad is Podesta, voiced by Del Toro favorite Ron Perlman. Pinocchio connects with Spazzatura and Candlewick because they too feel misunderstood. The whole cast is outstanding. John Turturro, Tim Blake Nelson, and Vern Gorman also have vocal appearances. Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, voices Mussolini. And the kid who does the voice of Pinocchio, Gregory Mann, is very good. Now, the movie has some very interesting things to say about about mortality and immortality, as well as unconditional love, and just making the most of our time on this earth. And the story of Steven Spielberg's film artificial intelligence has been compared a lot to Pinocchio. And yeah, you could certainly make those comparisons here, but um, a robot movie I actually think this is very similar to, other than artificial intelligence, is the movie Bicentennial Man, uh, with Robin Williams and Beth Davis and Sam Neill. It was from 1999, directed by Chris Columbus. It was based off of a story by Isaac Asimov. And in that film, so let me read the Google description. Richard Martin Sam Neill buys a gift, a new NDR-114 robot. The product is named Andrew Robin Williams by the youngest of the family's children. Bicentennial Man follows the life and times of Andrew, a robot purchased as a household appliance programmed to perform menial tasks. As Andrew begins to experience emotions and creative thought, the Martin family soon discovers that they don't have an ordinary robot. So yeah, like this so similar to this version of Pinocchio, it's Bicentennial Man involves inviting a non-human entity with emotions into a family. But as far as I don't want to go too deep into like the mortality and immortality stuff, because you'll have to see the film to know what I mean, for in this case for both films. I think parents can relate to the way Geppetto tries so hard to look after Pinocchio's safety and raise him the best way he can. This is especially the case since he is still grieving Carlo and doesn't want to lose Pinocchio. It sort of reminds me how in Finding Nemo, Marlin doesn't want to lose Nemo after what happened to his wife Coral. Moreover, Geppetto has to deal with his own fear of mortality. That said, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is just as much, if not more, for adults than it is for children, and my mom and I teared up together watching it. It's just, that's, what else could I say? But it's just so good, and I'm it seems like we have a sweeper on our hands for best animated feature, but honestly, it's deserving. And it would be, I wish you would contend in categories outside of that too. I would like picture and adapted screenplay and production design, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But it'll definitely be in my personal lineups. Next up is Glass Onion, written and directed by Rian Johnson. This is a sequel to the hit film Knives Out. In this installment, a tech billionaire named Miles Braun, played by Edward Norton, calls over former friends of his to his private island for a special event he's putting together. For those of you who have not seen it, I will not explain what happens. All I will say is that Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, is given quite the case to solve. The entire cast is fantastic. Janelle Monáe, Dave Bautista, Leslie Odom Jr., Kate Hudson, Kathryn Hahn, Jessica Henwick. The standouts to me, though, were Edward Norton and Janelle Monáe, who I wish were more in the supporting performance conversations. Janelle Monáe made Critics' Choice and was shortlisted at BAFTA but didn't get in. But she deserves more. And the way all these characters interact with each other and the lines they're given is just awesome. Rian Johnson is such a clever writer. In Knives Out, the design of the house was impressive, but the production design and the costume design are a total step up here. It's a witty satire on the relationship between billionaire business and influencer culture. And when you watch the film, you'll realize that it was released at the right time as far as relevancy goes. And what's so remarkable is that the way the film is able to maintain its energy from the beginning to the end without losing steam. And that's testament to Rian Johnson's great direction here. And that's all I really want to say about Glass Onion, because you can't really talk about it without spoiling it. I watched this with my mom, aunt, and uncle on Christmas Eve, and we all loved it. As far as cast and setting ideas for future Knives Out films down the line, I like the idea of a ski resort, perhaps somewhere in the Scandinavian area. Scandinavian actors like Mads Mikkelsen, Noomi Rapace, Connie Nielsen, Viggo Mortensen, or any of the Skarsgårds could star. You could even include Anders Danielsen Lee and Renate Reinsve from The Worst Person in the World. I heard that The White Lotus Season 3 will take place in Kyoto, Japan, so I wonder if they were to set the next Knives Out film in an Asian country, I have a hard time believing that they will set another Eat the Rich satire in Japan, unless the producers don't think like that. That being said, perhaps they could set it in Thailand, Indonesia, or even the Philippines. If the Philippines, you could get Dolly DeLeon from Triangle of Sadness. Eat the Rich cinematic universe, if you will. If they set it in India, you could get big-time Indian actors like the dudes from RRR, or Priyanka Chopra. If set in Australia, you could cast Hugh Jackman, Cate Blanchett, Nicole Kidman, Jeffrey Rush, Hugo Weaving, Rose Byrne, or even Chris Hemsworth. And if New Zealand, Jermaine Clement and Brett McKenzie from Fly the Conchords, yes please. Also, don't forget Rhys Darby and Taika Waititi. So, that's Glass Onion. I expect it to, most likely, show up in adapted screenplay, since it's a sequel. But nevertheless, it's just a fun, light, entertaining movie. I encourage people to watch if they haven't yet. Next up is Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. This is Steven Spielberg's fictionalized autobiographical story centered on Sammy Fabelman. His father, Bert, played by Paul Dano, is a computer scientist, and his mother is a failed pianist. She's played by Michelle Williams. As seen in the trailer, what incites him into wanting to make films is, after seeing The Greatest Show on Earth, he was scared of the train scene upon seeing it in the theater, and he recreated it at home as sort of like a way form of desensitization. If you do any research about Steven Spielberg's childhood and adolescence, you'll learn that his parents divorced. In a lot of his films, the dads are typically distant. Famous example being in E.T., the dad's not there. Or in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the protagonist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, leaves his family to pursue space. And in The Fabelmans, Mitzi and Bert's best friend, Benny, played by Seth Rogen, have a romance. And when the family moves, an affair. And when the family moves from Phoenix, Arizona to California, Mitzi deeply misses Benny and goes through a mental breakdown. In real life, Steven Spielberg's mom and his father's best friend also fell in love and got married. And you see the effect this had on young Spielberg depicted in The Fabelmans. He feels insecure and confused, and as Sammy's parents are at odds, he is at odds with himself. And his parents also disagree on which path Sammy should take in life. The father prefers him to be in the science field like him, and on the other hand, his mother encourages him to delve into his artistic endeavors and not give them up like she did. And it's like, as his parents clash, what he he clashes with um, his ideas about the type of person he is supposed to be. Now, this film is not a vanity project. In fact, contrary to what some people on like film Twitter would say, Spielberg does not view his childhood and adolescence with overly sentimental rose-colored glasses. Uh, uh, Spielberg gets very vulnerable in sharing deep, raw emotions that were experienced. And, like, to that point, it's actually pretty blunt and melancholic. And to that point, only after years of deep growth and healing, he was able to depict his parents' divorce without portraying either side as a villain. And most of all, depicting how, at the end of the day, his parents still love him. And, like, sure, like, in Mitzi and Benny's affair, despite, it being hard for his father, uh, were better for each other than uh, Sammy's parents were. As a romantic couple, doesn't mean that, like, um, uh, Bert and Mitzi couldn't be good parents. But you know what I mean. The more Sammy comes to terms with this, the more he is able to overcome his insecurities and become the best filmmaker he could be. Michelle Williams and Paul Dano are wonderful, and Judd Hirsch plays the uncle in one scene, and he is fantastic. And Seth Rogen is funny as Benny, of course, but my favorite performance is from Gabriel. Oh, I also really like Julia Butters, the little girl Trudy from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, as one of his sisters. Anyway, Gabriel Abel is really, really excellent as a Spielberg stand-in. I watched this during Christmas break with my mom, Aunt Kateri, and Uncle Joe. We rented it at her place, and my Aunt Kateri said she recognized Gabriel Abel from a TV show she likes called American Gigolo. I really hope Gabriel Abel goes places after this. Perhaps he'll work with Spielberg again. And it's a shame that Gabriel Abel isn't in the in being talked about in the best lead actor conversation, because he really is very good in this. But in closing, The Fabelmans is just as much of a I know this has become a cliche phrase this year, but love letter to cinema, or an ode to the beauty of filmmaking, as well as just a very insightful story of self-actualization. And yeah, that's what I have to say about The Fabelmans. Next up is The Whale, directed by Darren Aronofsky, written with a screenplay by Samuel D. Hunter, who also wrote the play that the film is based off of. Samuel D. Hunter was not the creator, but like one of the head writers on the FX show Baskets that ended a couple years ago. Baskets was a TV show that had Zach Galifianakis and Louis Anderson. Louis Anderson, I believe, won an Emmy for it. Yes. Yes, he won in 2016. And then he died actually a year ago, from yesterday, at the age of 68, I think. And anyway, so Charlie, played wonderfully by Brendan Fraser, is a 600-pound man who lives life as a hermit. He's a professor of an online English course, but he never shares his screen with his students due to his fear of being judged for his appearance. What drove Charlie to this lifestyle was the death of his male lover, Alan. And Charlie is cared for by his nurse Liz, played by Hong Chow, who is also fantastic in this. And she was a sister of his lover, and she's pretty much his only friend. And uh, even though, like, you know, she's supposed to help him health wise, sometimes she uh, enables his eating by like offering him sandwiches and stuff. But then again, she's just trying to be a good friend, and there's not. I think she knows that there's not so much she could do in this situation. We'll get to that. So Charlie is hanging on by a thread health-wise. He refuses to go to the hospital, and it is very clear that he doesn't have much longer to live. And Charlie tries reconnecting with his estranged, feisty, angsty teenage daughter Ellie, played by Sadie Sink, who's Max from Stranger Things. She's struggling in school, and Charlie tries to help her with her schoolwork. Ellie, however, is resistant given that she feels resentment towards her father for leaving her and her mother for Alan. And what I also wanted to bring up another character in the film that I found interesting, and that was this missionary. He's like a youngish man, assumably in his 20s, played by Ty Simpkins, who was in the Insidious movies and the little brother in Jurassic World, and so he plays like this missionary coming to the house, the apartment, offering to help save Charlie. But Charlie, while he is nice to the guy, he's pretty much nice to everybody, even when they're mean to him. He he rejects such an offer, partially because like he's part of the church that his 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 male partner was part of before he died. And then there's some really interesting things that happen. I won't explain what happens, but there's a really funny sequence between the daughter and the missionary. And so the I mentioned that he's helping her with schoolwork, and there's a really funny scene where she writes a haiku, and the haiku she writes, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a very funny haiku. Brendan Fraser's performance is just incredible. He makes you feel so much empathy for his character. The makeup and prosthetic work here is outstanding. The scenes where he gets up to use his walker and goes to the bathroom are bone-chillingly disturbing. And what I find interesting about Charlie's character is that although his daughter says really insensitive, cruel things to him that are honestly, like, I don't know if I would even forgive her if I were in his shoes. But he refuses to see any bad in her. He still wants to love his daughter, but rather than just jumping to the conclusion that she's a bad person, he views that part of her as her raw, honest emotions. And I think that's because he wants what's obviously uh, very clear to be his last days of his life with his daughter to be as positive as possible, if that makes sense. But yeah, Brendan Fraser 1000% deserves to win the Oscar. Makeup went alongside too. And I also really like the performances by Hong Chow, Sadie Sink, Ty Simpkins, and I liked she's in it for one scene, but Samantha Morton, most known for her roles in Minority Report, Synecdoche, New York, and In America. She plays Charlie's ex-wife, and she is really good in that one scene. And then finally, this film isn't contending for Oscars, but I mean I guess you'd call it awards adjacent. But I figured I'd talk about it because it's falling it's quite under the radar, and I wanted to bring it to people's attention. And that's Broker, written and directed by Hirokazu Koreeda. This is a South Korean film from Japanese filmmaker Hirokazu Koreeda, who directed Shoplifter, Still Walking, and Nobody Knows. He's previous Palme d'Or winner for Shoplifters, which is a excellent movie. And sorry, when a young mother, So Young, played by Korean pop star IU, brings her newborn son to a church, she finds two men named Hyun Sang, I could be butchering his name, played by Song Kang-ho, and Dong Soo, played by Gang Gong Wong, and they steal babies from the baby boxes at the church and sell them to make money. And for those of you who do not know, baby boxes or baby hatches are places for people to anonymously give away their babies. In the US, it's referred to as safe haven. So Young tags along with them on a road trip where they try to find parents for her child, and then on that journey she sort of second guesses her decision, like, should I have given up my child? Because she and Song Kang-ho's character and Dong Soo all connect with her baby, sort of raising it together in that time. And so while they're on their adventure, they're being tracked down by two lady cops, Soo-jin, played by Bae Donna, or Donna Bae. Some pronounce it. Some say Bae Donna. Some say Donna Bae. And Detective Lee, played by Lee Ju-young. So there's like a crime caper element. And Broker is such a tender and touching, heartfelt story about chosen family. Has has similar themes as Shoplifters, but much different circumstances. It brings up real issues that occur with adoption and child abandonment and abortion, not just in America, but around the globe. And David Rosen from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast I really like, said that the film sparks morality debate in that, in spite of these characters doing quote-unquote illegal things, they have the best of intentions. And in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, the touchy subjects that Koreeda approaches here could have been completely mishandled. But what makes it what makes it work is how Koreeda tells a humanistic story with complex characters, with delicate vulnerability and empathy. He does not cast judgment on his characters, and he makes you root for that. He makes you root for them and sympathize with them, even if they're criminals. And the performances here are fantastic. Song Kang-ho is one of the best actors we have working in the world today. I still stand by that he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Parasite. And Song Kang-ho actually won Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival back in May. And also, to bring up Piecing It Together podcast again, Ryan, the co-host, the guest, Ryan Estrada, said that Song Kang-ho, he's very famous in Korea. He's like the Korean Tom Hanks, except he's bad at his job, meaning like he brought up how Tom Hanks always plays a guy who's good at his job, and then Song Kang-ho always plays a guy who's bad at his job, like profession-wise. But the standout performance, though, for me, was IU as So Young. And I really hope I get to see her in more movies, because she's really excellent in this. And the scenery of the road trip is beautiful, and I liked the nice score too. Nice soothing music. Unfortunately, this was not South Korea's submission for this season's Oscars. Decision to leave is their entry, and I don't blame them, because Park Chan-wook is a brilliant director, and his direction in that is fantastic. But Japan could have submitted this, but they submitted Plan 75 instead. But nevertheless, I encourage more people to check this one out, because it's a really heartwarming and unique story. So that will do it for December and January movie reviews. I hope you enjoyed hearing everything I had to say, and hope you enjoy these movies. You check them out, and the links to my socials are in the description below. And yeah, Oscar nominations are on Tuesday. We'll see what ends up getting nominated or not nominated. But even though that stuff's fun to hear about, read up about, it's always what's always most important to me is talking about the artistic merit and the quality of these films, and connecting them to other films too. Well, thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.